Hey, it's Matt Brown here from Matt Brown's Guitar Studio in Chicago and the band Dead Parade. Alright, so what I've been doing with these technique lessons, if you're not aware, is I've been going off purely your requests. So bar chords is the topic lately that most people have been talking about, so here I am with a bar chord lesson. So what I'm going to get after first is some of the common pitfalls that I notice people kind of get into with bar chords. So the first pitfall that I want to talk about is that a lot of people don't even know how to hold the guitar correctly, including a lot of professionals. So this is the quote correct way to hold the guitar. And if you notice, if I take my hands and arms away from it, the guitar, it's still in the correct spot for playing. Maybe a little more of an angle there. But here we go, hands free, this is what it should look like. So two things right off the bat that you're probably noticing is the curved bout right here, it's not even resting on my leg at all. It's kind of just floating here in the air. The other thing is that the neck here is at roughly about a 45-degree angle with the floor. So as opposed to this, if the guitar was resting on my leg, that puts the neck at, pretty much parallel with the floor. And what that does, that's bad for your playing, is it forces you can see, like to do a bar chord, if I do this F chord, my wrist is pretty bent. So just as an experiment, what you want to do is bend your wrist as far as you can and make a fist. So it feels pretty terrible, right? And if you straighten it out, it feels as good as possible. So the idea there is, when your wrist is bent, all the tendons are smashed against the carpal tunnel, and yeah, sure, you might be able to play a bar chord successfully, but you're going to run out of gas sooner. So, conserving energy so that you can play long songs, is pretty key, especially with an acoustic guitar. So with this whole posture thing and, having the guitar at 45-degree angle and all of that, this can only be accomplished a few different ways. Like, I like to play with a strap when sitting down. The other way to kind of accomplish this angle is to rest this part of the guitar on the left leg and maybe do like a classical footstool type of deal. Or you can get like the classical suction cups that come and kind of anchor the guitar up in this position that way, which rests traditionally on the right leg. I find this, especially for acoustic guitar and electric guitar, is how I play. If I do play classical guitar, though, I do switch to the left leg for playing nylon strings. I just find it more comfortable. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk about is the length of your nails. So your nails, should be as short as possible, so there shouldn't be any amount of nail that's coming over the tip of the finger. If there is, it's going to get in the way of the wood of the guitar, and you won't be able to play with nice arched tip fingers. That is absolutely essential to playing with good technique. So another common problem that I notice, especially with beginners that are playing acoustic guitars, is a lot of guitars out there, especially cheap acoustics, are just barely even playable. And usually the problem that I notice is that the action is way too high. Even with quality brands of guitars, some of the entry-level to intermediate guitars, maybe even from brands like Taylor I've seen, the action's just like so absurdly high that it's almost impossible to play a bar chord on it, especially for a beginner. So, what you're looking for with action is the height from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, and this is measured at the 12th fret. So I actually prefer pretty high action, like somewhere around 7/64 on the bass side and about 5/64 on the treble side. So it's, fairly stiff action, and I find that I still can play just fine, but I mean, really anything higher than like 8/64 or 9/64, and you're going to definitely run into problems with your bar chords, no matter how strong your hands are. On the topic of acoustic guitars as well, another factor that I notice often is that people are playing with strings that are too big for their hands or for their hand strength. So I play 12s on acoustic, but you got to consider that I play guitar at least like 3 hours a day generally, so my hands are pretty limber. So, if you're new to guitar and playing an acoustic guitar, I wouldn't go any bigger than like a 10 or 11 gauge set. Otherwise, especially if your action's a little bit higher, you're going to have problems with the bar chords. Okay, now that we've gotten all of the, kind of outside factors, holding the guitar, your nails, using a strap, making sure your guitar is set up properly. Let's talk about the pure physical playing issues that people run into with playing these bar chords. So number one thing that I notice with people in bar chords is that they just haven't put in the time and the homework with the boring drills and exercises that will help prepare them to play bar chords. So what I mean by that are like kind of the technique exercise I talked about with playing 5, 6, 7, 8 and planting the fingers and doing the various combinations. You also want to do those kinds of exercises in lower positions, like first position. So if you can't play, one finger per fret and keep each finger planted in a 4-fret span here, you're not going to have much success playing bar chords. So until you get to that point with these like basic drills, you're kind of just setting yourself up with failure if you're trying to do bar chords too soon. So the other problem is, if you haven't mastered your open chords that contain open strings and are therefore even easier, again, you're not going to have much luck with bar chords. So, maybe rewind and work on those, polish those up, and then you'll have better luck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 4 specific bar chords, the ones that are used the most often in songs. So I'm going to go through each shape and kind of, go through my spiel about how I like to teach and prepare people to play each shape. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the full 6-string major chord, what a lot of people refer to as the E shape, based off of this open chord shape. So, when we move it, it looks like this. So what you want to start with this one is you want to start generally around 5th to 7th position. So I'm going to start in 7th position, and the reason for this is you're in the middle of the fretboard, so the frets aren't too far apart or too close together. And also when you get higher up on the fretboard, the action gets higher, so it's a little bit, like it's an awkward or a different feeling to press the strings down up there. Okay, so first off, what you want to work with is just playing a 2-string power chord at 5 and 7. So again, we want to keep our wrists nice and straight as it can be. Some curve is okay. And, making sure we're keeping our fingers as close to the frets without being right on them. Alright, so if you can do that, the next step is to add the pinky finger. Again, all of the notes have to be perfect, before we go to the next step. So, try to keep your fingers arched and nice. The other important thing with this bar chord is the thumb, and I'll talk about that more in detail in a second. So if you can do that, all 3 strings there, the next step is to play the middle finger. Now at this point, I'm not even using a bar or anything like that. I'm just using the first finger to fret the low 6th string. So that's what it should sound like there. And at this point, you have a full major chord. It's not just the power chord sound. It's a full major chord, so you could use that in a song and it would, it would probably sound great as a substitute if you can't, do the full thing in. Okay, so now here's where things get tricky, is when the bar comes into play to do the 2 high strings. So the way that I like to explain this is that on these 3 strings, sure, the first finger is barring across them, but on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings, these fingers are doing all of the lifting, the heavy lifting there. So, you don't need to expend any leverage at that point with the first finger because these fingers are doing the work. So, with the 6th string, it takes almost no energy to fret that note and get a good tone out of it. So, long story short, really you want to apply most of the leverage on the 2 high strings when playing this chord shape. So that's mainly done by squeezing between the thumb and the first finger at approximately that point, supporting right there. So if you could see the back of my guitar, my thumb is squeezing directly behind the first finger. My wrist is nice and straight, which allows me to do that, and that I'm applying the leverage down by the 1st and 2nd strings. And, assuming your guitar is set up, that should work out. Now, what people run into, like I said before, is they have issues of finger independence, where they can't do the one finger per fret exercises, or like they have issues with stretching their fingers. Those exercises work well, so make sure you practice those exercises, daily. So the next chord I want to talk about is what a lot of people refer to as like the A minor shape, based on this bar chord. So it's got the same shape as the major one I just went over, just moved down a string. So if you're working on this one, go through the same process. Do 2 fingers to start with, start around the 5th, 6th, or 7th fret, add the pinky finger, and then the middle finger, and don't even worry about the bar yet. If you can get all 4 though, then add in the bar. And the concept is the same here with applying the leverage. It's, you mainly want to apply the squeeze down by the 1st string, because these fingers are doing the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and the 1st finger, doesn't require much energy to hold the 5th down. Now, another mistake that people make with this one is they cover all 6 strings, and you don't need to, unless you're going for that 2nd inversion sound. So the root note is on the 5th string. So probably the chord that people ask the most about is what I'm going to call the A-shaped chord, the one that's based off of your open A chord, however you like to play it. So this one, I think the common or piece of advice that's really bad that people give is to try to do it with 2 fingers, no matter what. So what I mean is, your tip joint is only going to be so flexible, and you're only going to gain so much flexibility by, playing guitar and doing similar exercises. So if your tip joint isn't flexible enough to play this chord with 2 fingers in 5 strings, chances are it never is going to be able to do that. I've been playing guitar for, who knows how long, 20-some years, and still can't do it. So, long story short, if you're strumming a song and you don't need that high melody note, nobody's gonna miss it, really. So just strum the chord with those 2 fingers and play on the inner 4 strings. Now, if you do need that high note, like, if you need to play it in context of a melody, whatever, some sort of melodic content coming from the chord, what I do is I use fingers 2, 3, and 4 over at the higher fret, and that way I can play all 5 of the notes. Yes, this is harder to move around. I mean, you do have an advantage if you can bend that tip joint of the finger, but if you can't, you gotta work with what you have. So that's a good trick around that, is to use all 4 fingers if you need to play all 5 strings. Okay, last but not least, the chord I'm going to talk about is the 6-string minor bar chord. So this is the one kind of compared to the E major shape. The middle finger is not fretting a note at all. Instead, the 1st finger is fretting that note on the 3rd string. So, as you might have noticed, I like to do a little bit of support on the 1st finger with the middle finger. I'm not like, really squeezing or clamping it down, but, it just kind of naturally hangs out there anyway. And so it's just kind of leaning on that 1st finger and giving it a little bit more of a squeeze on the 3 high strings than I had with this chord, because it does take a little bit of extra pressure to bar 3 strings instead of just 2. Again though, notice how straight the wrist is. And you want to build this one step by step, just like the others. 1 string at a time, so just the 2-string power chord, 3 strings, and then get the bar in. 5 strings, 6, and definitely check them one at a time to troubleshoot. So, another thing to talk about with bar chords that maybe more advanced guitarists run into is they squeeze too hard with the thumb. So a very important thing to work through is like any song that involves a lot of bar chords, and playing it on acoustic is best if you have both an acoustic and electric. And what you want to do is just see exactly how much pressure you need to use to play these bar chords. Because if you're using any more than you have to, you're just going to run out of gas sooner. So, I mean, the idea or the goal is that, you know, you want to get to a point where you can play these bar chords on an acoustic with like bass-sized strings all day long and have no problem, you know. Alright, to wrap this one up, I just can't stress enough how important the finger independence and flexibility exercises are to playing bar chords. And I think, you know, if I had to make a generalization, people cheating and not doing their boring practice drills as warm-ups is usually what leads them to not being successful with the bar chords. So if that's you, you know, don't be lazy. Get on top of doing those exercises for, you know, just 2-3 minutes a day really as warm-up. That's usually what it takes. So I'm Matt Brown. If you have any questions about this lesson, please write in, or if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see me cover in this technique series, please post a comment as well. Alright, so please subscribe too, and I'll see you guys around for more technique and song lessons. Alright, thanks a lot for watching.